The Boss DS-1 is one of the most recognizable effects pedals in rock history, and for decades people have believed Kurt Cobain's was modified because it sounds so much louder than a stock DS-1. In this video I'm testing 3 super easy circuit mods that are often claimed to be Kurt's mod, plus one extra bonus mod that I came up with myself that I think ticks the boxes. First, let's compare the bypass volume to the stock DS-1. So I've got the volume and distortion on full and the tone at about halfway. So before I explain these mods, let's just listen and see which ones actually get louder and by how much. So everything you're about to hear is set the same. I've got the same guitar, the same amp, all the same settings, everything at noon on the pedal. Let's start with the stock DS-1. So yeah, you can obviously make the DS-1 louder, but louder doesn't always mean better. So before we go any further, let's just see why the DS-1 has a volume problem in the first place. So the signal gets hard limited right here at the clipping diodes, and then it loses even more volume going through this big muff style tone control. Now once the signal hits those two sections, there's basically no way of getting more volume out of it without changing one of these two sections. And just as a side note, I do see a lot of DS-1s come through the workshop and the output does vary slightly from pedal to pedal, but the bottleneck here always remains the same. So we're almost ready to dig into the mods themselves, but there's one more important bonus mod that I want to show you first. Modern DS-1s don't actually sound like the early made in Japan versions, and that's important because that's what Kurt was actually using. The good news is you can get really close with just 3 capacitor changes. It's all really straightforward. It's just correcting a few value shifts that Boss made over the years. Okay, so these changes smooth out the top end a little. It reduces that fizzy buzz and gives the pedal a more natural character that the early DS-1s are known for. It doesn't make the pedal louder, but it makes everything that follows sound better, in my opinion. Okay, so here is the mod. So this capacitor here, C5, you're going to want to change that with a 470 nanofarad capacitor or a 0.47 microfarad, same value. Okay, next we've got C8 here. You want to replace C8 with a 1 UF capacitor. And then we've got C7 here. We're going to replace this with a 250 picofarad capacitor. And once this is done, you're starting from a proper made in Japan style baseline, which makes the rest of the comparison sort of fair and historically accurate, I suppose. Okay, let's look at the mods that actually make a difference. Now, all of these mods are really easy to do, and in true grunge style, you don't even need a soldering iron for 3 of these. Now, I do have a schematic over on my website that details all these mods today, plus a couple of extra bonus mods, and I also chuck in the DS-1 Waza Craft schematic in there as well, because that's got some really interesting changes. But you don't need these schematics if you want to do these mods today. Just follow along in this video. It's only if you like working from a schematic or you'd like to support this channel. I've got some links down in the description. Right, so we're going to be looking at these diodes here, D4 and D5. First, we've got the no diode mod. Now this one's simple. Both clipping diodes are lifted, or you can clip them out. There's no clipping, sealing, no compression, just sort of raw output. The half wave mod. Here we just lift one of these clipping diodes and it creates a symmetry, but keeping some of the limiting in place. The next is the germanium mod. So here we add one germanium diode in series with D4 or D5. Now this gives a higher forward voltage, so that equals more output and a symmetry without completely removing control. The light speed mod, or R17 lift, this one targets the tone control section, not the clipping section. So we're going to be lifting R17, effectively turning the DS-1's tone control into a normal low pass filter, restoring the mids and lows that usually get dumped by the stock tone control network. Now this one has a very similar tone and feel to the Greer Lightspeed. I actually had one in the workshop at the exact same time I was doing this and got to compare them, even though the circuits themselves are actually quite different. It's a really simple change, but it behaves very differently from those diode mods. So most evidence points to Kurt running his DS-1 like this: distortion at max, volume at max and tone at around 11 o'clock. So now let's hear how these actually behave in the mix. If you like this sort of deep dive mod content, please hit that like button. It just lets me know you like this sort of stuff. I really love making these sort of videos. So I want to hear these mods in the mix. So next I've got a completely original song that sounds like nothing else called Smells Like Midlife Crisis. I'm going to be playing the exact same thing for every single one of these mods, and I've level matched it as best I can, so there's sort of no volume trickery, and all you're going to be hearing is the tone difference in the mix between all these different mods. So here's what shook out. So the no diode mod, it sounded great. It was really easy to install, but at Kurt's settings, just way too loud. The half wave mod, also very easy to install, but the sound was kind of weird. It felt sort of strange and also way too loud at Kurt's settings. Next was the germanium mod. Now this sounds awesome. It's a little bit trickier to install and it sounds bang on, I think, at Kurt's settings. I think it gave a really good push. And the light speed mod, that R17 lift, it was really easy to install. It sounded awesome. I love the sound of that one. And it was also great at Kurt's settings as well. So I think that ticks the boxes for me. So was Kurt's DS-1 actually modified? Well, maybe it was, but more importantly, now you know which mods actually make sense and which ones don't. Hope you guys enjoyed this video today, and we'll catch you in the next one.